Assalamu alaikum students. A very good morning to you all. I hope you all are safe and doing well. Please stay at home and take all the precautionary measures because the situation is really getting worse day by day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from this monstrous virus and bless the affected ones with speedy recovery. I know this is a very difficult time for all of us, but we have to fight back by continuing our work and not losing hope. You should take maximum advantage of this time and should work hard for your exams. Trust me, this might sound impossible right now, but by utilizing this time, you can score really well in your exams. As we all are locked down, we can't meet our relatives, we can't go out with our friends, so why not divert all our concentration and energy to the studies? This time will soon pass, inshallah, and only those people are gonna make through who have utilized their time and not wasted it. So boost up your energy, fully concentrate on your studies. We are always there to help you out. As it is said, fears are nothing but a state of mind. So please don't let this fear come in the path of your success. Okay, so on that note, let's start today's session. But before that, I want you to have a flashback of what we did before the summer break. We started the cardiovascular pharmacology, right? We are done with the diuretics, AC inhibitors, and ARBs, and you have already taken the test of these topics last week. So now we'll be doing calcium channel blockers. First, let's see what are our learning objectives for today. So by the end of today's lecture, you should be able to classify the calcium channel blockers, write down their mechanism of action, should be able to enumerate their clinical uses and adverse effects, and write down the differences between dihydropyridines and non-dihydropyridines. And you know the protocol, right? You should have a pen and a notebook by your side. I will ask you a few questions during the lecture. You have to write down their answers, take a picture, and send it in your WhatsApp group for the attendance. Simple. So gear up your energy and let's get started. First, the introduction. As the name indicates, calcium channel blockers are the drugs which will block the calcium channels, and since we are studying them under the topic of cardiovascular pharmacology, it is quite obvious that they will block the calcium channels in the vascular and cardiac smooth muscles. Clear? So, a question should arise in your mind that why not these drugs are blocking the calcium channels of skeletal muscles, or the ones which are present in neurons that were responsible for the release of neurotransmitters? Let's find out its answer. Calcium channels are basically of two types, voltage gated and ligand gated. Ligand gated channels are regulated by the binding of an agonist or endogenous substance, and voltage gated are regulated by the changes in the voltage. They are further divided into L, T, N, P, and R types. We are mainly concerned with the L type. They are present in the cardiac muscles, smooth muscles, in the skeletal muscles, osteoblasts, and endocrine cells. And T-type channels are present in the neurons and heart. N-type channels are present in neurons and sperms. P-type in neurons, and R-type are present in neuron and sperms. Vascular smooth muscles, basically the arterioles, they rely on the calcium influx through the L-type calcium channels for contraction. This will cause vasoconstriction. So for excitation, contraction, coupling, the cardiac cells, the myocytes of the atria and ventricle, they rely on L-type calcium channels for the contraction, and the slow response cells like SA node and AV node, they rely on L-type calcium channels for the upstroke of the action potential. And blockade of these slow channels would slow the heart. So calcium channel blockers are having negative chronotropic and negative inotropic effect on the heart. N-type and P-type calcium channels, they mediate the neurotransmitter release in neurons. You have already studied it when we did the ANS pharmacology. The voltage gated calcium channels open and then the neurotransmitters are released from the neuron, remember? Skeletal muscle contraction is induced by rapid influx of sodium, which triggers the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. As these cells do not require extracellular calcium for contraction, the calcium channel blockers fail to affect them. Let's summarize what we did till now. Why calcium channel blockers act selectively on the cardiovascular tissues. So now we know that transmembrane calcium influx is necessary for the contraction of the smooth muscles and the cardiac muscles. The cardiac muscle requires calcium influx through L-type calcium channel for contraction of fast response cells like ventricles and for upstroke of action potential in slow response cells like SA node and AV node. And vascular smooth muscles require calcium influx for contraction. Whereas the neurons, they rely on N and P type calcium channels, and skeletal muscles, they rely primarily on the intracellular calcium. That's why the calcium channel blockers, they are acting just on the cardiovascular tissues. Calcium channel blockers are the drugs that prevent the calcium influx into the muscle cells, and now we know these muscle cells are the cardiac and the smooth muscles. Let's do the classification first. They are broadly classified into two groups, dihydropyridines and non-dihydropyridines. Dihydropyridines are the drugs which have more effect on the vascular calcium channels, and non-dihydropyridines equally block the cardiac and the vascular calcium channels. Non-dihydropyridines are further of two types, benzothiazepines, diltiazem, and phenylalkylamine, verapamil. All the dihydropyridines, they end in pene: amlodipine, felodipine, nifadipine, isradipine, nicardipine, nimodipine, nisoldipine, clevidipine. You can see I have color coded some drugs. So uh, nifedipine is the prototype drug of dihydropyridine group. I want you to write down the definition of prototype. Amlodipine is the longest acting drug. It has the longest half-life and a very slow onset. Nimodipine is the drug which has more effect on the cerebral arteries because it is very lipophilic and it easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. Nicardipine and verapamil, they also affect the cerebral arteries. They also cause vasodilation over there. And clevidipine is the drug which is only available for intravenous use. Its oral preparation is not available. You must have seen these drugs in your house. Uh, Amlodipine is available by the name of Norvasc or Amodep, Empress. Nifedipine is its brand name is Adalat, and verapamil is available by the name of Kelan. Let's have a look at their pharmacokinetics. Calcium channel blockers are orally active. They have good oral absorption because they're very lipophilic. They have high first pass effect and thus have very low bioavailability. Write down the definition of bioavailability. They are highly plasma protein bound and undergo extensive metabolism. Most of these agents have short half-lives following an oral dose. Therefore, sustained release preparations are available which permit once daily dosing. Amlodipine has a very long half-life as we discussed earlier, and therefore it does not require a sustained release formulation. Verapamil, diltiazem, and nifedipine can also be given through IV route. These are the structures. This is verapamil, diltiazem. These two are non-dihydropyridines, and nifedipine, which is the prototype of dihydropyridine group. Let's check out its mechanism of action. Calcium channel blockers block the voltage gated L-type calcium channels basically in the cardiac and smooth muscles and reduce the intracellular calcium concentration and thus the muscle contractility. So if you get this question in exam, you have to write down the voltage gated L-type calcium channels. Just writing down calcium channel wouldn't be sufficient. Okay, so calcium channel blockers, they block the voltage gated L-type calcium channels in the cardiac and smooth muscles. These drugs act from the inner side of the membrane and bind more effectively to the open channels and inactivated channels. This is a very important point to remember, that they are binding from the So the calcium channel blockers, they act from the inner side of the membrane and they block the calcium channels in the open and inactivated states. Let's check out their pharmacological actions. Calcium channel blockers, they relax the blood vessels. Now you know how they relax the blood vessels, how they are producing vasodilation, because they are blocking the entry of calcium inside the smooth muscles of blood vessels, mainly the arterioles. They have less effect on the venules and thus they won't produce orthostatic hypotension. They also relax uterus, bronchi and gut to a lesser extent, and when they will inhibit the propulsive movements in the gut, it would lead to constipation. They reduce the rate and contractility of the heart. As we discussed earlier, they are having negative chronotropic and inotropic effect on the heart, mainly diltiazem and verapamil. And they also reduce blood pressure because they are producing vasodilation. It will decrease the total peripheral resistance and hence blood pressure will decrease. And which drugs are having more effect on the blood vessels? The dihydropyridines. And non-dihydropyridines, they equally affect the blood vessels as well as the heart. Smooth muscles rely on the influx of extracellular calcium for contraction, and blockade of the calcium influx prevents contraction of vascular smooth muscles, thus causing vasodilation. These are the differences between the two types of the calcium channel blockers, the dihydropyridines and the non-dihydropyridines. As we discussed earlier, dihydropyridines are selective vasodilators. At low doses, they affect the blood vessels and they do not affect the heart. At high doses, they do affect the heart as well. And non-dihydropyridines, they equally affect the cardiac tissue and the vascular smooth muscle. So these drugs, they produce peripheral vasodilation because they preferentially block the calcium channels in the arterioles, and the venules are less sensitive to their action. Therefore, they won't produce orthostatic hypotension. The vasodilation will decrease the total peripheral resistance and this will increase the reflex sympathetic stimulation of the heart, leading to reflex tachycardia and increase in myocardial contractility. Whereas the non-dihydropyridines, they directly produce the negative chronotropic and negative inotropic effect on the heart. These drugs, they also dilate the coronary vessels. So non-dihydropyridines will produce bradycardia, whereas the dihydropyridines will produce reflex tachycardia by decreasing the total peripheral resistance. Let's see the clinical indications. These are the situations, diseases or indications in which we use calcium channel blockers. The first clinical indication is hypertension. As we studied, they decrease the peripheral vascular resistance by producing vasodilation, so they can be used in treating hypertension. As you all know, blood pressure is a product of cardiac output and peripheral vascular resistance, so by decreasing peripheral vascular resistance, blood pressure can be decreased. And non-dihydropyridines, in addition to decreasing the peripheral vascular resistance, they also decrease the cardiac output. Secondly, they are used in angina. Angina is the severe chest pain which occurs due to cardiac ischemia. And the non-dihydropyridines, by decreasing the heart rate and by decreasing the cardiac output, they would decrease the oxygen requirement and thus they can be used in prevention of angina of effort and vasospastic angina as well, because we studied they also dilate the coronary vessels, so they are used in vasospastic angina as well. Third, because they were blocking the calcium dependent conduction in the AV node, so they are used in the treatment of nodal arrhythmias, supraventricular tachycardia, the atrial flutter and atrial fibrillation. Again, we will use the non-dihydropyridines like verapamil and diltiazem in arrhythmias. Calcium channel blockers are also used to treat hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, in which the heart muscles are thickened. They are also used to prevent the cerebral vasospasm associated with stroke, and they reduce the CNS damage caused by vasospasm following the subarachnoid hemorrhage, and it should be given within 3 days of hemorrhage. This is the skull and this is the dura mater. This is the subarachnoid space and this is subarachnoid hemorrhage. And we studied earlier which drugs would be useful in this condition. You can get this in a multiple choice question. It is nimodipine. Nimodipine is the drug of choice for subarachnoid hemorrhage. And why we use these drugs? We use them to reduce the CNS damage caused by vasospasm following the subarachnoid hemorrhage. And clinical indications of calcium channel blockers are very important from examination point of view, and their adverse effects are also important. So till now, we saw these drugs are used in the management of hypertension, angina, arrhythmia, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, stroke, subarachnoid hemorrhage. They are also used in the prophylaxis of migraine, and they can also be used to treat Raynaud's phenomena. Raynaud's phenomena is a condition resulting in discoloration of the fingers or toes, which is triggered by exposure to cold or hot climate and emotional events. The skin discoloration, it occurs due to abnormal spasm of the blood vessels causing diminished blood supply. This causes the affected area to become white first, then blue, and as the blood flow returns, the fingers they turn red. They're also used in the management of preterm labor because they also block the calcium channels in the uterus and they will prolong the labor. And they are used to reverse the resistance of cancer cells to cancer chemotherapy by blocking P-glycoproteins. You know P-glycoproteins, these are the transporters which throw out the foreign substances, like when we give antineoplastic drugs to a cancer patients, they will not allow the drug to enter into the cell and they will throw it out of the cell. So these calcium channel blockers like verapamil, it will block the P-glycoprotein. Now the toxicity. The toxicity is the extension of its pharmacological effects. It can produce constipation by slowing down the propulsive movement of the intestines. It will produce pretibial edema. This is due to arteriolar dilation, and it will increase the permeability of postcapillary venules. Constipation is more with verapamil, and pretibial edema can occur with dihydropyridines as well. This is the ankle edema and it is pitting type. It can produce nausea, it will produce flushing due to vasodilation. They can produce dizziness and headache due to vasodilation of the cerebral vessels. They produce hypotension, but they will not produce orthostatic hypotension because they mainly affect the arterioles. Venules are less sensitive to the blockade by calcium channel blockers. And the non-dihydropyridines like verapamil and diltiazem, they produce bradycardia, and dihydropyridines, they produce reflex tachycardia by reflexly stimulating the sympathetic system due to hypotension. And the dihydropyridines like nifedipine, they produce gingival hyperplasia if used for a longer period of time. There is another drug, phenytoin, which is an anti-epileptic drug. It also produces gingival hyperplasia. So being a dental surgeon, you should know which drugs can produce gingival hyperplasia. The adverse effects we discussed till now, they are not that serious, so we don't have to stop the drugs if these effects appear. But more serious adverse effects can occur like heart failure, AV blockade, and sinus node depression. These are most common with verapamil and least common with dihydropyridines. So if these adverse effects appear, you immediately have to stop the drug. There are certain contraindications of calcium channel blockers as well, like congestive cardiac failure. If a patient is in failure, obviously we won't give him calcium channel blockers, it will further slow down the heart. They should not be given in heart block, and if a person is having hypotension already, these drugs should not be given. And these drugs should not be given along with beta blockers because it will result in excessive cardiac depression. So that's it. Let's discuss whatever we did till now. Let's summarize it. Calcium channel blockers are divided into two main groups, dihydropyridines and non-dihydropyridines. Dihydropyridines have more effect on the blood vessels, and non-dihydropyridines have effect on the cardiac and vascular smooth muscles both. Non-dihydropyridines are verapamil and diltiazem, and dihydropyridines are like nifedipine, amlodipine, etc. These drugs, they block the L-type voltage gated calcium channels in the cardiac and vascular smooth muscles. They decrease the entry of calcium into the cells and thus decrease the contraction. So they are used in treatment of hypertension because they will decrease the total peripheral resistance and they also decrease the cardiac output. They are used for prevention of vasospastic and angina of effort because they decrease the cardiac output and heart rate, and they will decrease the oxygen demand. They are used in the management of arrhythmias, in the management of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, stroke, subarachnoid hemorrhage, preterm labor, migraine, and to prevent the resistance to antineoplastic drugs due to P-glycoproteins. And their adverse effects are they produce constipation. Ankle edema is really important adverse effect of these drugs. They produce flushing, nausea, headache, dizziness, hypotension. Nifedipine will produce reflex tachycardia and verapamil will produce bradycardia. These are not very serious adverse effects, but they can produce heart failure. They can block the heart, so they are contraindicated in congestive cardiac failure, in heart blocks and hypotension, and they should never be given along beta blockers because they will excessively depress the cardiac tissue. So time for some brainstorming. You have to write down the answers of these questions and submit it in your WhatsApp group. Why do calcium channel blockers act selectively on cardiac and vascular smooth muscles? For vasospastic angina, what would you prescribe, beta blocker or calcium channel blocker? Here are some MCQs. A 58-year-old female reports that she recently stopped taking her blood pressure medications because of swelling in her feet that began shortly after she started the treatment. So what is the keyword here? Swelling in her feet. And it is a blood pressure medication, which is most likely to cause peripheral edema. Atenolol, clonidine, felodipine, hydralazine, or prazosin. A 62-year-old patient with a history of asthma and vasospastic angina states that he gets chest pain both with exertion and at rest. He is having angina of effort as well as vasospastic angina about 10 times per week. Which is the best option for improving his angina? Captopril, propranolol, ranolazine, or verapamil? Just write down the answers. Question number 1, what is the answer? Question number 2, A, B, or C? Which side effect is associated with amlodipine? Bradycardia, cough, edema, QT prolongation. So that's all for today. If you have any question regarding this topic, you can ask in your WhatsApp group and I will answer them as soon as possible. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz.